Hello and welcome to Artshow. I'm Craig Stover, and today I have with me Kiki Gaffney. Hi, Kiki. Well, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Craig. How are you?
Very good. I wanted to start out right away doing a little share of the screen so people can get an idea of the kind of work that you do.
Okay.
Um, I I was able to take some images off your website. Ooh, let's go back. I really like this one in particular. Do you remember titles at all? I probably should have.
Yes, this one is called Birch Two Views, is the
Is this
title of this
is this
piece.
a big piece?
This is 30 high by 44 wide. So it's
Wow.
basically two paper panels, to make a diptych. Yeah.
Great. This one I love this one too.
Oh, thanks. God, I believe this is called Fallen Trees. And this one, I'm gonna say it's probably 30 by 40. I'm not quite sure, but it's basically
Yeah.
graphite on a wood panel. And there's a tiny little bit of acrylic and there's a little bit of gold leaf in that one. Yeah.
Are these invented scenes or are you using photo references or anything?
These I use photo references. So I basically go out, go out into nature on hikes in the woods, what have you. I photograph what I find interesting, and then I'll come home and I'll work directly from those photographs for the graphite part, for the drawing part.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so this is also a work on paper. It's up, up, here we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
We can go back. We can go back.
Yeah. No, no, no. This is yeah, this was a fun one for me. The drawing was super fun. And then of course the challenge is what to create around the drawing. So I like to use a pretty realistic drawing to
Mhm.
kind of let people enter the piece with something recognizable. And then I add the elements around that. And so yeah.
Well, this one really caught my eye. I thought this was
Oh,
fantastic.
thanks.
I love the repeating patterns.
Yeah, that shows up a lot in my work. This kind of like not a Rorschach, or maybe it is, I don't know, but that kind of reflection situation shows up a lot for me. And so again, graphite on the left and then acrylic painting on the right. Yeah, this is just a little tiny work on paper. Um,
Hmm.
I did a whole series of, I took the photograph, which is
Hmm.
the tree stump, and then again, I add the abstract elements on top of it. So this is a
So,
series of 10, actually.
oh, okay. So
Yeah.
these are I'm kind of jumping around. So you have some newer work and some older work here.
Yep. Oh, that's a real old one. Although I've never done a piece like this before, and it's one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Uh, God, I don't even know. Again, this was just a lot of playing around with this one.
I love the elements, the photographs compared with the textures of the patterning. It just works.
Yeah, and I will just add that's actually a drawing of the
Is it?
chair.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah, that's.
Well,
But
well
again,
done.
I was looking at a photograph. Craig, this is one of those moments where I'm gonna have to. My dog's gonna start barking. Hold
Okay.
on, hold
All right.
on
You want
one
to
sec.
restart?
Hold on one sec. Okay, come back. Sorry. I'm back. I'm back. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know if you need to edit that out but she's just going to start to bark. So
Okay.
sorry.
Are you comfortable continuing?
I am. Yes.
All right. And then this was the last piece. I like this piece. This is one of the few pieces where it really shows scale that you have on the site, the multiple panels.
Yeah. Yeah. And gosh, this one is, I think, from like 2012. And I think this is really when I started to get deeper into exploring, organic shapes and then kind of created manufactured shapes, if you will. But I had a lot of fun with this one, and uh, yeah, collage elements kind of new for me in this one. But yeah, so
Works. And this was the final piece that I
this was the final piece.
I
Yeah.
love it. the piece
Yep.
that I couldn't not put this in just because I wanted to hear you say something about it.
Again, I go back to, so you've probably noticed I focus a lot on nature and images that are found in nature, and then I kind of play around with the shapes, and then again, you know, that organic kind of natural shape, and then the more geometric patterns, and then how they can play off of each other. And so that's basically what this one is about. And I will add that the drawing on the left, I looked for a lot of years, I looked at the work of Carl Blossfeldt, who was like an early 20th century photographer, nature photographer, really got very detailed with his imagery. And so that was super inspiring to me. I've since transitioned into my own photographs, which is
Mm.
nice. But that's what that reference is on the left, is a,
Well, I mostly chose it because you know you're wearing the same yellow, so
well,
that was.
I try to, hey, I try to match, I try to match. So
I'm
yeah,
curious about your process. I'm sort of geeky about that. I'm
yeah.
curious. Do you keep a sketchbook or
It's interesting. I do have a sketchbook, but it's mostly ideas, writing. And so
okay?
I don't do a lot of actual sketching. And I don't, I mean, there's no real reason behind that. I just, for me, when I get an idea, I need to write it down.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not one of these people who can type into my phone or dictate. I have to physically write it down.
Hmm.
And then that process just generates visual ideas in my mind.
So
But,
when
of course, every once in a while, I certainly will do some sketching, or, if I get an idea, that kind of thing. But mostly my sketchbooks are writing.
so when you're in the studio, do you have an idea of what you're going to do, or is it all immediacy?
No, I often will have a general idea, and
Hmm.
it usually starts with a photograph that I've taken. So an image of a fallen tree, or rock formations, or whatever it is that I'm interested in. It usually starts with that, and then I'll start the drawing, and then sometimes I will have no idea where it's going, and other times I'll have kind of a vision. But it always starts with the drawing. And then I let that kind of, I sort of work with that, and I let it inform me what's next.
You do you ever after you make a work, do you ever rework your pictures or even destroy them if they don't work out?
It's funny. I don't know that I've ever, well, God, like early work is like in my basement,
Uh-huh.
getting like gross down there, because that's my
So
basement.
do you never throw anything away?
I tend to not to, because in my
Yeah.
mind, like, maybe I could take an element of it and collage it onto something. You know what I mean? Like, there
Yeah.
may be a
Oh yeah.
use for it down
Oh
the
yeah.
road. You
Yeah.
know, even a
I
greeting
get
card.
it. I mean, sometimes there's artists they destroy, everything every week.
Yeah,
They'll go thumb through, and other people will save every scrap. So,
yeah. No, I don't. But I also am not like, because my work takes a long time. I'm not like super prolific. So
mm.
it's not like I have just like thousands of things floating around that I may or may not use. You know what I mean? So I'm fairly limited in what I have, because my work tends to take a while.
I'm curious about. I see sometimes you use these really beautiful patterns.
Yeah.
Where do they come from? I mean, is it you have a pattern book?
I do,
Do you
well,
collect them all the
we have
time?
a massive, I mean, you might be able to see, I don't know if you can see, but
Okay.
we have tons and tons and tons of books. And, you know, so, and my husband, Tom, who's also an artist, he, oh gosh, it was at the Design Marketplace on Market Street, or anyway, he went to somewhere and he got tons and tons of those old wallpaper sample books,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like thousands of them. So
Right.
I'll look through them, because what I've been interested in, um, and what I continue to be interested in, is um, organic shapes found in nature, and then created shapes, constructed shapes, shapes, wallpaper, maps, things that we design. But for me, it's all comes from nature. All of those shapes, you can find them in nature, and so that's kind of the impetus behind my work. And so, yeah, like wallpaper samples, yeah, just whatever I can find.
Anywhere you can grab it.
Anywhere I can grab it.
I get it.
Yeah.
So I have a geeky question for you, a little technical geeky question. The papers I see a lot of work is on paper.
Yes.
Do you prepare your papers first in any way?
Or
seal them afterwards?
I seal them afterwards because I tend to use I use a really nice it's Fabriano, I believe is the brand, and it's like 300 pounds, so it's heavy paper. Because for me, paper's so delicate as it is, and so I feel better using a heavier paper. And I also will work on it. I'll paint on it. I'll do gold leafing on it. I'll glitter on it. You know what I mean? So it needs to be fairly sturdy. But when the piece is done is when I will fix it and, finalize all those details. But
you mentioned both gold leaf and glitter, which I noticed that you use as sort of highlights in your work. And it's not just one piece. I've seen it in multiple pieces. What's your attachment to that? Where did that come from?
Gosh, well, I started using, glitter. Well, honestly, I was somewhere and I saw a show and this artist used glitter and I was so blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is like a game changer for me. I just loved it. I loved it. But then really when I started to think about it, it's the reflective qualities of glitter, the way the light catches it. Same with the gold leaf. And for me, it's like, when you're, especially when you're out, at least for me, in nature, and you observe things, there's like a time element to that. And so it's like those materials in a way add a sense of time, because every time the light hits them, it's a different viewpoint. It's a different way of looking. It's a reflection. It's like you could shut the lights off in your studio and that gold leaf is still reflecting on something.
Still there.
You know what I mean? I love that. And so like so it's like a time element, but it's also especially the gold leaf, I look at it as how do I describe this? It's like sorry, Craig, that's my dog. Shh. Sorry, I'm really sorry.
There's no way I'm editing that out. I'm just gonna leave it in.
You gotta go. Take her. Sorry, Craig. I really apologize for that.
We'll just call these happy accidents.
Happy accidents.
I'll put up an intermission sign when you're in the room.
She's really good. Oh, but what I was saying was, especially as of late, a lot of the imagery that I look at in nature, a lot of it has to do with like fallen trees, rocks, things that are not like obviously beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It's like an observation process. And then when you take a substance like gold leaf and you add it, it gives it this like almost like a reverence. You know what I mean? Like you go into a Catholic church and everything is covered with gold leaf. You go in, you look at temples and there's, you know what I mean? And it just adds that kind of like reverence is the only word I can think of. It kind of elevates the imagery. I mean, so in addition to it being beautiful, it being reflective, it adds that, it just kind of brings that little bit of like elevation to these kind of mundane subjects, like a fallen tree.
Well, as you're talking about your clearly love affair with glitter and gold leaf, it makes me think about things like flocking and diamond dust. I don't know if you've ever experimented with that, but have you ever experimented with other materials? I mean, stuff that's even beyond the paper and graphites that you're using. Have you ever?
I've not.
Photography, sculpture, or anything like that?
No, I would like to, but I have not as of yet.
All right. You're still finding your wheelhouse?
I've done maybe one or two installations, but for the most part, I'm pretty much two-dimensional right now. That could shift. That could change.
I feel you. I got it. I'm there too. Totally. I love 2D.
You love 2D?
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So your work to me, uh, I would think that it would lend itself really well to printmaking. And I was just wondering, is that something you ever done, or have you ever considered doing that?
No, I think I took a printmaking class a million years ago. It was like one of those night classes, like,
Hmm?
that an art center offered kind of
Right,
thing.
yeah.
And it was really fun. But I've never formally studied it. I've never,
Well, would you ever have other people make prints of your work? Would you ever consider that?
oh sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I've made one or two actual reprints of my work
Yeah,
for a project here and there, but in terms of printmaking, I don't really have
yeah.
yeah, a whole lot of background around that.
Your
But
work
my
is just
artwork,
so
oh, sorry,
you
go ahead.
I'm sorry, your work is just so accessible to so
Uh-huh.
many people
Mhm.
that to me it would just seem like a natural. I'm going to talk you into this
Okay. All
because I
right.
think it's a natural. I think there's also a price point there that it's a whole
Okay.
nother audience kind of a
Maybe
thing.
you and I can talk later on about that.
Yeah,
But
we'll get into the geek of it. So let me take our audience back, way back.
okay.
What was your first, if you can remember, what was your first exposure to art?
Oh my God. I know my parents took me to like I mean, I'm from the Philadelphia area, so we would go to
Okay.
the art museum. But honestly, I remember I don't know how old I was, and I made these, we called them thumbprint drawings, where you make thumbprint and you make a little
Okay.
person out of it. And
So
I
wait a
like
minute. Are you telling me that you started making prints?
I guess in a way, Craig, you're right. You got me there. But I would make these, and I just like became obsessed, and
Huh?
I would create these crazy scenes with these like
Yeah.
thumbprint people. And I remember my parents just like really encouraging me at that point, like, wow,
Yeah.
we entered them in like little local thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's my very first memory. And I remember just experiencing so much joy from
Yeah.
like just sitting there and doing that.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, this is just so fun. I really would love to be able to do this,
That's
you
a
know.
question that I ask artists, and I'm always worried that they're gonna freeze up. But most artists are like, "Oh yeah, it's like the
There's
first
like that
thing."
memory where you're like, oh my God, I
That's a
remember.
core memory that's there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so after that, flash forward me a little bit. When did you actually really start making art? How did you get your start in art?
I guess it was, well, I mean, really in high school. I mean, I think everybody had to take art in freshman year, and then you could like take it as an elective sophomore, junior, senior year. And so I did that.
Hmm.
And I remember our teacher just introducing us to all different kinds, like you did your self-portrait, you did like collage, like she just introduced us to so many different things. And I remember really getting excited about that. And then in college, I went to a liberal arts college, and I got a BA in fine arts. Um,
Did you know
and
at that point that you wanted to pursue
I
arts?
knew I wanted to pursue art, but my parents were like, look, why don't you just go to liberal arts college, get be well rounded about it, and then you can pursue blah blah blah.
I love that parental wet blanket. Here you go.
Well, yeah, like so, and so I did, and it was a great experience. And I love, in fact, one of my it was a very small program in my college, but it was super special. And actually, one of my teachers just reconnected with me through like Instagram. I guess she's somehow found me and saw that I was having a show, and so it's really sweet that we've reconnected. And I'm really proud that she sees that I'm still an artist after all
Right.
these,
Yeah.
'cause, let's face it, a lot of it's a hard, as you know, it's not an easy it's not
Yeah.
an easy road to hoe. But and so after college, I decided that I thought, I really need some more. I don't have a lot of crit experience, and so I thought, ooh, maybe I should go to grad school. I mean, again, I had no real idea how
Hmm.
to make this work. All I knew was, I think I need a little more. I need a little more education. And
Hmm.
so I went to grad school at the University of the Arts, and that was super tough. It was super tough
Hmm.
because I didn't have the background and the experience that so many of the other grad students had in terms of critiques, in terms of how to talk at a critique, how to explain your work,
Right.
None of that. So I like floundered, but and a couple of my teachers, I share this story a lot. A couple of my teachers sort of pulled me aside and they were like, we don't know if this is for you. Like we don't know if this is for you. But like that's all I needed to hear.
Right.
And
I'll
I was
show
like,
them.
exactly. And so I was like, oh, okay, I gotcha. I hear you. And it just, but it shifted the whole conversation for me. And
Yeah.
so I really kind of got pretty clear about, is this something that I want to do? And yes, it was. And so I just basically worked my ass off. I got out of my head.
Yeah.
I, and so, so it was great. It was like that little like kick in the ass that you need, you know what I mean? To like
Yeah.
get you out of that mental state. And so, yeah. And so then after grad school, again, it's kind of like, all right, well, how do I do this? And the only thing I knew is what I remembered from a teacher in college, one of my favorite people in the world, Mary Atherton, no longer with us, but amazing woman. And she's like, look, whatever you do, you've got to make art every day. You just have to do it every day, no matter what your job is, no matter what
Yep.
you just have to do it every day, period.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
never forgot that. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I had my weird day jobs and this and that. And every night I would go home and I would force myself to make something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it just like slowly built upon that.
I read once that apparently only like 3% of graduates that come out of art school continue on in their life to make it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
which to me is shocking because I
I know.
can't go without. I mean,
I know. It's like you
I would
can't
just
help
become
yourself.
a weird,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that leads me to one of my stumper questions
Okay.
that I love to give. What does making art do for you?
What does it do? I mean, aside from fulfilling me and bringing me joy.
That could be it. That in itself could
um,
be the
Yeah, I
perfect
mean,
answer.
well, for sure it's that because I often think, because there are those moments where it's like, oh my God, this is so freaking hard, man. Maybe I should just, go get that day job. And then I like I feel so dead inside when I go to those dark places of like no
Hmm.
longer making, and it's like I have to make it. It's like a fundamental need. Do you know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Hmm.
And so it's just like yeah, so I guess it just fulfills something in me that needs attention. Like I just, you know what I mean?
It's kind of
Um
funny. I asked that question, and I do stump a lot of people in the beginning, but maybe I should stop asking it because everybody always seems to answer it the same way. Like they have
yeah,
to make art.
like
The people that I
you just
know,
have to do it. You can't
it's
help
like an
yourself.
itch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and yes, there are those days when you're like, oh Christ, what am I gonna do? And you're stuck and you're this and you're that. And then what I usually do in those moments is I'll take a break from what I'm doing. I'll look at other artists or I'll go out to a gallery or a museum and I'll get recharged. Do you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? I get re-excited again. It's like, oh, yay.
So
And
when you
then
go out to a gallery, do you do that often?
I
Museums,
try to.
galleries,
I really do. I mean, it's really hard, as you know. I mean, but I try as hard as I can to see as many shows as I can.
right?
In Philly, we go to New York, we'll go to DC, and really wherever I travel, the first
Yeah.
thing I do is I look up what are the galleries, what are the museums, what are the cool art things, no matter what city I'm in, and no
Right.
matter where it is. That's
Yeah.
always the first thing on my
Got
list.
got the agenda, got it
Got
down.
the
Yeah.
agenda.
It
Yeah,
really is food for the soul. So I
food for the
totally,
soul.
I'm there.
Yeah, yeah, and then of course the next one is like, where can I go hiking? Can I be outside somewhere? Like that's the close second, But um, yeah, it's like it's just such a part of me, and um,
It makes
yeah,
sense. It makes sense. Well, talking to you, I now have probably another 20 questions, right? That I would love to ask you. So there's a lot of technical stuff, but unfortunately, I only have time for one more. And I
okay.
love, so my last question is actually one of my favorite questions, just because I find it so varied. Um, when you go into the studio and you're going to make work, do you have any sort of rituals that you do that you may not even think of them as rituals, but things that you do before you make work? So I'll
Yeah.
give you examples. I have
Okay.
some people, they have to have the radio on. I
Oh
have
yeah.
one artist, she has to make a cup of tea and a half a sandwich.
Oh, wow.
So what do you what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I'll tell you, when I first get to the studio, so usually when I leave the studio, where the last time I'm there, I kind of prepare my area. Like I
Uh-huh.
put my things, like so when I come the next time, like that part is set. And then yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'll decide if am I going to listen to music? Am I going to listen to a podcast? Is there like business crap that I got to get out of the way so I'm not thinking about it? And it's
Hmm.
not like in my space when I'm working. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I guess I have to set what I'm going to listen to. I got to get all my business stuff out of the way so that I can focus.
You can
Because
have
I
a nice
notice, like,
clear.
it's just my mind. One of my side jobs, Craig, is I teach yoga, which I think I told you.
Uh-huh. Right.
And so, which
Oh,
is
that makes
great because
sense.
I
Your
have one
answer
of
makes
those
more sense.
minds, I
Yeah.
just ruminate like crazy. Like my mind is like
Right.
a mess. And
Mhm.
so the yoga helps with that. But you know what I mean? Like I've got to clear my mental space
Yeah.
before I work because otherwise I'll be like, I got to do this. Oh shit, I didn't call that person. Oh my God, I have, and then I'm like, I'm not focusing on what I'm doing.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you're going to make tomorrow and next year. And I'm
Oh,
actually thinking because I have additional questions, maybe next year we'll do a part two of this
part
conversation. I'll
two.
do a little
Sure.
catch up.
I'm down
So
with that. And I'll make sure my dog is
there you
taken
go.
care of.
Yeah, we'll be glitch free next time.
I'm
How's that?
really sorry about
But I
that.
like the glitches. I think it's kind of fun. It makes it
Yeah,
real. So
like,
uh, this time went by real fast.
it
It was a
sure did. I was
pleasure
like, wait,
talking
what?
with you, Kiki. Thank you very much for coming by. It was
Oh,
great learning about your work. And now I have to do a little bit more research and I want to see some more stuff. So thank you very much. And
oh,
thank you
Craig,
to
thank you.
everybody who has watched today. We really appreciate it. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you get future updates about additional artists. We have a ton more artists lined up and we're going to do some great interviews. And if you have any questions, make sure to put questions in the comments. Otherwise, thank you again, Kiki. I appreciate it and have a fantastic day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Bye bye.